Welcome back to the Shining Athletes podcast, our 8th episode. I'm your host, Tyler Baum, and I'm excited to have you all back. Today, we have a very special guest that we are bringing on. His name is Parker Zidel. He was a manager on the ASU basketball team, and now he is a grad assistant at Arizona State. His story is a very good story to tell. He has a different perspective other than just a student athlete's perspective. He really goes into talking about what the importance is, maybe for an athlete looking to get recruited, or maybe just the advice for families to come and understand what a college coach might look for in an athlete. And it's really important to hear his story because he explains that it takes time and it takes a path. But as long as you take your path and understand the importance of what it takes and you put in the work, that anything can be achieved. And Parker is the definition of someone that really put in the work to get to where he is now, and very bright and high future to come in basketball. And that was because he took his path to the next level by reaching out to the Arizona State program and making his impact. So let's not waste any more time. Let's get right into this episode with Parker Zidel. Welcome, everybody. Welcome back to the Shining Athletes podcast. Today we have a really special guest. I'm really excited to tell his story. He is our first coach that has come on to the podcast. I'm really excited to hear what he has to say more about his time as a manager on the ASU basketball team, and now he is a grad assistant at Arizona State. And I'm excited to tell his journey and explain the different mindset of not an athlete mindset, but what it takes from a coach's mindset, and help high school athletes share that it might be a different path than just being a 5-star athlete. So Parker, welcome to the podcast. Thank you for coming on. Thank you for joining. I'm so excited to have you.
Yeah, excited to be here. Thank you.
Cool. So let's jump right into this thing. Let's have you tell a little bit about you, kind of let the audience hear about you.
Definitely. Yeah, so I'm originally from Phoenix. I grew up playing basketball. Basketball's always been my sport. I was a 4-year varsity basketball player at my high school. It was a little bit of a smaller high school, but just definitely staying close to basketball was something that was really important to me, and having the ability to play it in high school was really special to me. I would say I'm like a shooting guard, small forward type of position. And I decided to stay local and go to Arizona State. And just throughout my various times spent in basketball, I knew that I wanted to pursue a career in basketball. And I decided to approach ASU's basketball team about becoming student manager, and it came together. It worked great. And I've been fortunate enough to be with the program now for a few years, and most recently being brought as a graduate assistant. So
That's awesome. Well, let's talk a little bit about high school and your journey through high school. As you mentioned, you were a 4-year varsity athlete. When you were going into your junior or senior year, did you think about even trying to play basketball in college, or did you know that you wanted to kind of do the behind the scenes and help out behind the scenes more?
Right. I would say that was more of a turning point for me. I think freshman and sophomore year, I was a little more hopeful of playing college basketball, whether that was, like D3, NAIA, whatever it may be. But as I got a little bit older and I just kept playing, I realized that, maybe at this point in my life, just focusing on my education and then having sports come as a close second. I think that was the time in my life where I started to realize that, as you mentioned, junior, senior year. And I think just generally playing basketball throughout high school, it really showed me, like, I do want to stay involved however I can. And although that might not be playing it, professionally or in college, just staying close to it and volunteering, helping out, working in it, however I can get involved was something I definitely wanted to do.
That's awesome. Yeah. And how did the transition feel when you came into the Arizona State program and started managing and you were around the guys and being a part of it, but when you were being involved, not as a player, was it a weird transition in mindset wise, thinking differently as a coach versus helping that the athletes develop rather than I need to do this for myself to get me to where I am now?
Yeah, that's a great question. I would say so. I actually inquired about being a student manager headed into my junior year of college, so it's kind of on the back end there. But so I went from pretty much playing sports all of high school to having a gap where I didn't play sports. Like I would play intramurals, I'd play pickup with friends, just casually, and then working within Arizona State's basketball team. So I think the transition wasn't as difficult going from a player to like a volunteer essentially because there was that gap of time. But that being said, I was welcomed into the program immediately. Like everyone was super supportive, and it's definitely a grind. Like it's not easy to come into a Division One program and like try to make your mark. Like as a student manager, you're kind of like bottom of the totem pole. Like you do whatever you can to help others out, and that's the understanding when you take the job. Like I realized that I was super fortunate to be one of 15 student managers, a part of like one of the biggest universities in the country. So it's definitely I was very fortunate to have that experience, and that's the mentality that I came in with when I started my junior year. And I think just also coming in like as an older college student compared to the kids that might come in as a freshman, as a sophomore, just kind of having the maturity of understanding, okay, like, I'm not a high school athlete anymore. I'm transitioning into trying to work in sports. So being prepared with that and coming in and just trying to make everyone else's life easier, that was my goal at the end of the day.
And to add off of that, I think there is a lot said about managers, and there's a reputation that it's being a manager on not just a D1 team, but maybe a D2 or D3, but being a manager in general, it's a full-time job on top of the student part of things. Can you kind of talk about that and how that transition happened and how you were able to adjust?
Yeah, definitely. Originally at first, I mean, it was definitely a big transition for me in terms of academics because I consider myself a high academic person and I really like to focus on my grades. And, at the end of the day, I was in college to do well and succeed. And being a part of the basketball team and in my small capacity, like that's, that comes secondary to education. And so I think just learning how to balance it and being able to, as a full-time student and as pretty much a full-time worker, being able to plan out my what assignments are due when, how I can mix up my time accordingly, and how I can best spend my time to not only make sure that I succeed as a student, but also as a assistant within the basketball program.
Yeah, that's very true. And I think this is a different perspective in the sense of, as you said, Parker, being involved is one thing, but wanting something and striving for it is a whole different story, because if you set your mind to something and be able to plan out your path, you can make goals and little goals to get to where you want to be. And as you brought up, it took you 2 years after college to really realize where you wanted to be. And I think it's really important for the audience to take in how important it is to really find your path. And we've talked about this with a lot of other guests that have come onto our podcast, but they really talked about how important it was for them to find the interest and the love in what they were doing versus doing it for the clout or doing it for the free education because it's free education. They were doing it because they wanted to work and get to where they wanted to be. And I think what you just described shows that, you know, if you work and put in the time and you can use my favorite word, time management, as a success and you know how to time manage, it pays off because you can do what you love and understand what it really takes. But to go off of that, how did you look at basketball differently from a mindset when you were coaching versus being on the floor and really having to direct your teammates and communicate that way as a person that is the same age as the athletes? It can be kind of hard to coach and motivate the players, especially if you're trying to give them help and they see you as your age. How did you kind of adapt to that and get trust in the guys on the team?
Yeah. No, I think that's a very fair question. I think it can be looked at it that way. I think coming in, a lot of the times you're the same age as some of these student athletes, if not, they could be younger than you. And at initially it might seem kind of strange. Like, how are you supposed to talk to people and encourage them to do certain things when they're your age or younger? But I think that's when trust comes into play, like you mentioned, like being around the program, helping guys out when they need it, even if it's small tasks that aren't necessarily on the court, helping them off the court, helping them with things that they need in their daily life. That's how trust is built. And I think once you start to build those relationships with athletes, with coaches, whoever it may be, that's when that trust will kind of start to come into play and really help you from there, where you can take the trust and then expand on it and help however you can.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I totally agree. And I really look at making sure that together is a big word that at least I use when I coach, because we look at it to make sure that every single person in the gym has a role. And it doesn't have to be that leader or the main guy, but everybody has that position in the group. And it could be a coach, it could be a manager, it could be a video coordinator, it could be whatever it may be. And you still have a role and an impact on that team. And I think looking at it in a perspective of not just having that mindset of, oh, I'm the best, I can will a team to victory. You can put yourself in that role and really find where you strive best. And I think you described that great, because trust is all about togetherness and understanding who you're with and hanging out and just having a good time with it, instead of you're there as a job. Like, it's not supposed to feel as a job. It's wanting to be there to grow. And I think, going off of that, can you kind of describe, because you've had a lot of experiences throughout the ASU program, from making the NCAA tournament to, not as successful years, how you see the improvement as a coach, and kind of in the lens of a coach, see the different aspects, whether you need to change some things X's and O's wise, you need to change some things chemistry wise, or just, they're playing well and making the NCAA tournament.
Yeah. So first I will say, you kind of touched on this earlier. I think approaching everything with humility and with humbleness is something that I strive to do in my everyday life, especially in this job. I think humbling yourself and being able to realize where you are and how you're contributing to a high major program is really important. Coming in as a manager, you're not going to be doing the most glorious things in the world. Like, there's a lot of things that are, under the radar. Like, not a lot of people think that think of it when you're working in a program, but at the end of the day, it's stuff that needs to get done, and it needs to get done well in order to help make the program function at a high level. And so for me, coming in as a little bit older of a student manager, that was something I definitely learned quickly, and something that I tried to capitalize on and try and strengthen, uh, my trust with others just by doing that to the best of my ability. But to answer your question, I think just coming in as a student manager, you know, you're tasked with those things that might not be of the highest significance in others' eyes, but doing those tasks to the best of your ability and gaining a trust is how you start to learn from the coaches and how they trust you to take a step up and help with, maybe more strategy, with more scouting. And I think Arizona State does a really good job of that. The coaches have all been really great to me, and I know with all the managers we've had in the past, they really give you an opportunity to learn from them. So that's something that I would say I was fortunate to have a part of, just by working hard and doing all the tasks that I was assigned done well. It's just starting to gain the trust of others, and from there, being able to sit in on meetings and being able to take notes for them and being able to help out with scouting projects and with strategy for opponents and for prospects and recruiting. So a lot of different things. I wouldn't say that being able to look at each year and evaluate why we weren't successful, and then acting on it and making changes was a direct product of what I did. I think I had a very humble part in just helping with the smaller tasks at hand and making everyone else's life easier. And from there, the coaches are able to make those informed decisions on how we can improve our team, what we can do better, by looking at the product that was put out there during the season.
Yeah. And I think with that being said, as you brought it up well, talking about how you kind of just played your part, and you were on an NCAA tournament team, and that's a really big achievement for anybody. And to look at it from a recruiter's perspective, do you see that when recruits come in, is there kind of a way to kind of prepare for what you're looking for and how the athlete should come in when you meet with them? Because I know when the coaches have their agendas, they kind of are looking for certain things at different schools, but from an athlete perspective, do you think there's a preparation for one coming to visits?
Definitely. I think that it's a full process on both sides. I think, the recruit, you want to make a recruit as comfortable as possible when they come in with their family, on official visits. You want to take care of them, make sure that they have the best experience possible. And so, not only should the recruit be coming in with a mindset of an open mindset of, okay, I'm going to go experience the campus, I'm going to see what the program's like, I'm going to check out the facilities, see how I connect with everyone. The basketball staff has to prepare from that on the other side of things. They need to make sure that the recruit's taken care of. If they want to go above and beyond, which Arizona State has done really well, just accommodating the recruit and their family, making sure they feel welcome. And I think that helps separate elite recruiting schools from other schools. And I think I'm very confident in our staff and what we've been able to do with the different recruits we've been able to bring in, and keeping that open mindset. Like I mentioned, that's something that, recruits might not always, they might come in with a little more of a bias or feel a certain way, but just being able to welcome them in and show them, okay, like this is where you could be, you could fit in this way, and we're going to make you feel like family, even if it's for 24 hours, however long it is. Like, we're going to make sure that you're welcome and do whatever we can to accommodate you.
Yeah, that's awesome. And I think there's another part of it where athletes are so nervous about just the aspect of, okay, this is a live period versus not a live period, because now that's so different. But, when it comes to really finding the balance between outreach to being recruited and having the importance of having film for coaches. What do you think would be a good balance for an athlete when it comes to just understanding what is expected of them in a work ethic? There's a balance between visits and finding film and doing the work that it takes in the gym. What do you think that good balance is really like when it comes to being prepared for reaching out to coaches and maybe not being on their radar, but just making the connection?
Definitely. I would say that my stance is that you should control what you can control. The product you put out there as an athlete is what's going to take you far. I wouldn't stress as much about trying to get your name out there and um, trying to reach out to coaches all the time and promote yourself. Like that is important, to hold yourself to a high standard and, send film, make your film available. But at the same time, if you're a hard worker, if you're a good athlete, if your product that you're putting out on the court is good, like you will be found. It's just a matter of trusting that process and believing in yourself. And I think that's what it comes down to at the end of the day with so much social media, film access, and all that in the air. I think it's really allowed um, coaches to have a wider grasp on the different prospects that are available all across the nation, even if they can't physically be there to watch them. And then, yeah, so I would really just say focusing on controlling what you can control and working hard every day. That's what's going to separate yourself. And with that, people will find you.
I totally agree with that. I love that perspective. Can you kind of give advice to families as they're kind of going through the recruiting process? A lot of families think, "Oh, I have to be on top of my athlete to help them out," but the athlete has to do some of the work. And as a coach, it's different for the audience to kind of hear that perspective versus a athlete's perspective to hear maybe what the family should be doing on the back end.
Yeah, I think there's a healthy balance between being a little too overbearing versus like supporting your athlete. I think that as a family member of an athlete, it's important to have their back and make sure that they're doing what's best for them and for their own process. But that doesn't mean that you should prevent them from being independent and being able to, do well in school. Like they should come in with that mentality of I need to do well in school so that I can get where I want to get. It shouldn't be, your family stepping in and talking to your coaches, hey, I want you to play my kid a certain way. Hey, we're trying to get recruited by this team, that team. It's more so just about having the athlete try their best and enjoy themselves. And then, like I mentioned, I think scouts or coaches will see that. And I think a lot of times too, having a more independent athlete will make them more appealing as a potential recruit. So I think just at the end of the day, to answer your question, just be willing to support your athlete in any way you can, but they are their own person, so let them pursue their own passion, their own dreams, and just support them however you can.
I couldn't have said that any better. Yeah, no, I totally agree. I think that's why me and Aaron really started this business, is because we wanted to support athletes in the sense of they could feel like they had someone to come to rather than it just being the family that's supporting them and having to deal with that. And they could come to someone and have their families be supportive and help them through times that they can support, but also have the guidance of us to really help and make the next step to where they want to be. But I couldn't have said it any better than you did. How was your transition from being a manager to a coach and having that extra responsibility behind the scenes? Was it a difficult transition, and did you feel more connected and in the development piece to the players, and did it help more with making connections and understanding the the athlete's version as a coach, like understanding their mindset, more of how they think and really understand the game versus just being a manager and kind of helping behind the scenes, but not as much X's and O's wise?
Yeah, going from a manager to a graduate assistant, I think has been a really rewarding experience. I'm super fortunate to remain with the same program while having that happen for me. I think as a manager, like I mentioned, you really have to humble yourself and do every task you can to separate yourself and to help others and make everyone's life go a little bit easier. It's also a super rewarding experience. I think, there's a lot of great things that I experienced throughout my time as a student manager in my undergrad that I'm super fortunate to have experienced, and I don't think many other people have the same experiences just because of the situation I was put in and kind of how I reacted to it and tried to make the most of it. But going from a student manager to a graduate assistant, like it's still fairly new to me. I was brought in this summer, so elevated roles for sure. I would say the player development piece is still in play, like you said. Um, Having a little more freedom with like my style. I think the coaches know me, they trust me, and they they like the product that I produce for them and how I help them. And so I think just kind of expanding on the trust that I built with different coaches and taking an interest in different things that they do well and learning from it. So for example, if a coach is really good at recruiting, approaching them and being like, "Hey coach, like, I've been around for a few years. You like me, I like you. I'd love to sit in and learn how you recruit at such a high level." So really taking advantage of those opportunities and definitely having more impact on the strategy side of things just by building that trust out and having such a strong relationship with so many good people in that program.
That's awesome. Yeah, I totally agree with that. And I think if you have the ability to time manage and really understand what time management is and take in criticism and be able to really dive deep into what the product is that you're doing as a manager, I think it's a really good role, especially if you're like, okay, I want to be a part of it, but as you brought up, like, I don't know about the basketball part, but I want to be a part of it and make an impact in a different way. And that's a great way to do it, is being a manager and then making those connections so that in the future you can do something in the basketball realm and stay involved and achieve goals that you can see now and in the future. And I think it's a really cool thing to hear, and a really different perspective for the audience to really have that we haven't really shared yet, which is really cool. But to kind of end this thing, we always like to end with a few speed round questions. Okay, first, who was your favorite player growing up as a kid?
Ooh, I would say three-way tie between Giannis from the Bucks, Devin Booker, and James Harden.
Wow,
Yep,
that's
a lot of
crazy.
different faces.
What is a dream location that you would want to coach?
Ooh, definitely Cameron Indoor. I think Duke would be really cool and special to coach, and I've been fortunate to be in a game in the atmosphere. It was awesome. So
Yeah, that's so cool. Your go-to pregame meal or snack?
that's a great question. I'm gonna go with chicken parm
Okay, I like that. Best experience you've had as a manager?
as a manager. I would say traveling, just in general. I've been super fortunate traveling with the team the last few years. Going to Gonzaga, having a several overtime period against one of the top teams in the country in Texas Tech last year, and then going to Palm Springs and winning a tournament out there last year was super special. So
That's awesome. Your favorite sports movie?
Favorite sports movie? Happy Gilmore.
It's a great one. Who's your biggest inspiration?
My biggest inspiration would definitely be my family. My sister's super hardworking, and my dad is too. And my mom also is very good at rounding us all up and making sure we're holding each other accountable. And so I would say definitely all three of them are my biggest inspirations.
Okay, last question. One word that would describe your playing style as a player.
Versatile.
I love that.
I think I can do a lot of different things. I'm a little out of my prime now, but back in the day, I I used to have a good vertical ability. I think defensively too, good timing. I used to love just getting blocks, chase down blocks, shooting too. That was something I really prided myself on, spacing the floor. So just overall doing a lot of different things and doing my part as a teammate. So being versatile for sure.
That's awesome. Well, I really appreciate you, Parker, coming onto the podcast. Your story was awesome to hear, and I'm so excited to share with the audience and explain what the difference is between being a manager versus being an athlete and really having that different mindset. And I think your perspective is great for athletes out there to really listen to and understand that it is a different path and it's different work, but you're still being involved and you're still making as big of an impact as some of the coaches and some of the players. So yeah, thank you again for coming on. I really appreciate it, and I really had a great time.
Yeah, thank you for having me. It's been a great experience.
Well, Parker had a great story. I really enjoyed that he explained the different mindset that it really takes to be a part of a program. And not many student athletes can take in advice from a coach like Parker. He does a really good job explaining what your mindset should be to be together, to have time management, to understand your path, and really to take in all of the advice and all the information you get from the connections you make. I really enjoyed Parker's story, and I'm super excited for the audience to take in really what Parker said, because if you're a student athlete listening, you need to understand the process and how hard it really is to be at that level. You need to understand the perspectives and what different roles take and the responsibility it takes to get to that next level and the transition and all these different aspects that lead to certain paths and certain achievements and certain goals. And you really have to pick your path. Your path is going to decide based off of what you want and how hard of work you put in. But to stay connected to Shining Athletes, don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on the post notifications. With all that being said, keep shining, keep working hard, and we'll see you guys next time. Peace.